We have a Fernando Tatis Jr. update and much more on fantasy baseball today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5. As always, make sure to follow and stream us on Spotify. Today is Wednesday, August 24th. I am Frank Sample, joined by Scott White. And let's start with Fernando Tatis Jr., who met with the media here on Tuesday. He apologized profusely, but he also announced that he will have shoulder surgery this offseason, the same one the Padres wanted him to have next offseason. Scott, I put out a poll on Twitter asking where people would want to draft or feel comfortable drafting Fernando Tatis next year when he's eligible to return. What do you think? How are you feeling about his draft stock for next season as of now?
Well, I responded to your poll. I said round 3 to 4, really more like round 3. And I believe that was the most popular response in your poll as well. As far as the news of this, him undergoing shoulder surgery, I think, look, I don't want to make light of surgery, especially on a shoulder, but I see this as a risk factor being removed because remember, this was an injury that put him on the IL 3 separate times in 2021. We all thought he was going to have surgery to correct it at the end of the season. He didn't. And so, it's something that's lingered since his days in the minors. It needed to be addressed, and now he's getting it addressed. And yeah, I guess there could be setbacks in that rehabilitation. You can never be too sure when it comes to surgery, but he's having surgery to the labrum in his left shoulder. It's worth pointing out. It's right-handed hitter, right-handed thrower. The right shoulder is the more important one for him, and it's reminiscent of Josh Young, the Rangers prospect. He tore the labrum in his left shoulder. Lifting weights back in February, returned 6 months later and is killing it at AAA. He looks just as good as before the surgery. So I don't think it's going to be. I think it's unlikely to be something that compromises Tatis next year. And if anything, it makes him more reliable, more likely to stay in the lineup, stay healthy once he returns from the suspension.
We have a lot of time until then, but if you're already thinking about next season, maybe Fernando Tatis in the third rounds of your drafts. I do love, Scott, if you're watching us on YouTube, you said you had something to point out and you literally pointed to your left shoulder as if we didn't know where it was, but I do appreciate that. Some waiver wire hitters from Tuesday's action. Jorge Mateo, we talk about him a lot, but he just keeps on hitting, keeps on stealing bases. He went 1 for 3 with an RBI in his 28th steal. He's 70% rostered, Scott, but basically since the end of June, he's hitting around 285. His strikeout rate is around 20%. That would lend himself toward being valuable in a points league as well. So I think at this point, Jorge Mateo needs to be universally rostered regardless of format.
Yeah, I think so too. If we take it back to June 20th, which we could make the sample even smaller than that, and the numbers look even better. But I think taking it back to June 20th, you give Jorge Mateo a stat line that looks, that looks solid still. Looks like something he could halfway sustain. June 25th, actually. OPS just a little south of 900. The BABIP looks like something sustainable. During that stretch, during that time, Jorge Mateo's point per game average is 3.05, which is actually a little better than Dansby Swanson during that same stretch. Is about the same as Andres Jimenez during that same stretch. It looks like somebody who's a perfectly serviceable starter, even in a points league. Must start, I would say, in categories league, but on the fringes of being startable in points leagues as well.
All right, let's say you need a corner infielder in a deeper league, Scott. You brought up a name on the Full Length podcast that we have not talked about much at all. Donovan Solano went 3 for 4, and he is now batting .331. He's with the Cincinnati Reds. A few other names here as well. Evan Longoria went 2 for 4 with his 12th home run. He's playing well since returning from injury, but he just doesn't play every day for the Giants. And then Emmanuel Rivera has back-to-back multi-hit games, and he's played well with the Diamondbacks. 15 games, .296 batting average, 4 home runs. How do you rank these three, Scotty, in deeper leagues? Solano, Longoria, Rivera.
I rank them just like you listed them there. Solano at the top. I think if Longoria played more consistently, he would be the top choice. I do think Solano, his playing time hasn't been quite every day either, but I do think it's going to be the most consistent of those three, and that's the main reason I put him at the top of the list. You mentioned batting .331 for the season, OPS over 830. It's mostly driven by the batting average, and you might assume, .331, that's obviously unsustainable. But Solano, dating back to 2019, so 4 seasons, he's a .310 hitter. Like, hitting for average is what he does. High line drive rate, all fields approach. Obviously, he's in a good environment there in Cincinnati. So I think, plus he's eligible as second in addition to third base, so 2 weak positions. I think he's much more useful than his 4% roster rate would have you believe.
All right. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, your smart speakers, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. We'll be back again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.